I'd like to also introduce our first plenary speaker, Professor Monica Cox, who is a professor of engineering education at The Ohio State University. Professor Cox has a bachelor's degree in mathematics from Spelman, her master's in industrial engineering from the University of Alabama, and a PhD in leadership and policy studies from Vanderbilt University. In addition to her role as a professor of engineering education, she is the inaugural chair in the Department of Engineering Education at the Ohio State University. She's doing incredibly important work, and personally, I'm very excited to hear about what she has to say. So without any further delay, Professor Cox, thank you, and take it away.
Thank you so much. And thank you to the organizers. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for having me today. I am extremely excited to talk to this community because this is my home community. This is where I started, mathematics, and it has been an amazing foundation for everything that I have done thus far in my life and in my professional career, maybe not my entire life, but my professional career. Now, I do say funny things, and so hopefully, although I can't hear you, you'll laugh or you'll think that something is a little insightful. But I'm here to present information in a really authentic way, because I think so often we see professionals who are one-dimensional, or they seem to be people who have arrived and they don't really talk about their struggles, or they're not really authentic. And I just said that's who I am. So I hope that you will learn something today. So I'm talking about stop playing diversity. This is a really important topic to me, and I think that it's time to start having a conversation that should be happening but isn't. So hopefully you'll see some things today that will challenge you. I did put my information here. I'm an entrepreneur as well as a professor. So some of the Stop Playing Diversity content that you hear today is going to be there. And you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. I have a YouTube channel, whatever, at Dr. Monica Cox. That's me. And my company is STEMnet LLC. So what is Stop Playing Diversity about? I wrote this in a Medium article, and I said, when I am blamed for disrupting a system that was not built for me and am expected to fix that system in the same breath, leaders in an organization are not being accountable for their roles in the system. They are playing diversity. I'm going to back up a little bit too. And I came up with this idea because I was a professor at Purdue University. And as I transitioned to be a department chair, in my interview, I said, I am going to be really authentic. And if this is a place that plays diversity, then I don't hire me. I was that bold in the interview. I said, look at my blogs, look at my social media. I am not changing because this is where I am in my professional career. And that idea just remained with me. And I think that when we talk about playing diversity, it means so many things, but I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what I mean. So being a professor, I kind of have my objectives. I want to, by the end of my presentation, let you know what I'm talking about when I am saying that people are playing diversity. And I want us to get to the place where we're engaging in authentic diversity efforts. Another thing is I want you to know how to recognize that initial signs that diversity efforts maybe aren't what they should be. Many of you maybe aren't yet in a position of power, but I think the locator should be there. The awareness should be there. You should know if a place is unsafe. You should know if a place is one that does not protect you and does not encourage you. And, I don't really want to go so much in the deficit space, but I feel that I am going to talk to you from the perspective of what I wish I had known starting out. Also, what are the costs of diversity? What does it mean to engage authentically with this work? And then what are some practices that will move individuals and organizations from this playing perspective into a more authentic perspective? Now, this is the Monica Cox 2021 mid-pandemic, I hope we're in pandemic, the end of the pandemic, Monica Cox. I said, this is who I am in my work. And, it's kind of just my philosophy. I want to guide people and organizations in authentic ways to emerge wiser, bolder, and whole. The reason that's important to you is that so often in our institutions, we focus on the titles and the positions. Yes, I love that I've, gotten multi-million-dollar grants, and titles are wonderful and salaries are great. Thank you so much. But that's not it for me. At the end of the day, I want to be whole. I want my almost 3-year-old son to have a mother who is complete and is not torn down by a system. I want to laugh. I want to be real. And at the end of my life, I want to be that person who people say made a difference. Yes, all the accolades are wonderful, but it's about pouring into people in a way that I'm leaving a legacy that is greater than I ever could have imagined. So just know, as I speak to you, this is me speaking from my heart. It is me telling you things as if I am your advisor, your colleague, your mentor, your friend, because I want you to live the best life that you can live. And it starts with getting to this place of authenticity. So let me tell you, one of my aha moments from having a conversation with one of my friends, Dr. Kristen Moore, is like we talked about the dynamics between Black women and white women. And, I am a Black woman, she is a white woman, and we were reading literature that referred to some of the historical issues that have happened in the United States. And we were like, what is it about our relationship that's so amazing? Because it's amazing. And I talked to her and I said, you know what? I need to engage with people who are accomplices. At this point in my life, I don't need allies. I don't need advocates, but I need accomplices. And when you think about accomplices, it often sounds very negative, like someone's about to rob a bank or they're about to take something over. But I think that it's important to be that assertive when we're talking about how we need to engage to do this work well. So in the, in the paper, we talked about what happens if I am cut. If I am cut and someone is my ally, then they'll cry. If I am cut and someone's my advocate, they're going to call 911 for me, which is good because, some help is on the way. But if you're my accomplice and I am cut, you're going to bleed with me. You're going to be in the trenches. If a bullet is coming for me, then you're going to get grazed too. And I think that this moves us from this place of performative allyship into authenticity. And in our programs, we want people who are not just taking the training. We don't want people who are just talking the talk, but we want to learn how to walk the walk. And one of the things that I'll say about this is that when I've done workshops with people and I'm like, we want to move toward accompliceship, some people actually realized they couldn't be accomplices. And I want to say that that is also really important because you need to know who's in the trenches with you. If someone is not going to have your back, if someone is not able to, if someone does not have the courage, then you need to know that as well. And, I'm going to tell you, a little bit about my story. And, you heard that I'm a mathematician. You heard I'm an industrial engineer and I have a PhD in leadership and policy studies. I was the first Black woman to earn tenure in the College of Engineering at Purdue, the first Black full professor at The Ohio State University and the College of Engineering, the first Black woman department chair. And it's like first. And I want to tell you that because I wasn't ready at all. I was not prepared to be a trailblazer. I was not prepared to be the only. And that is a very different experience that I think many people don't realize. And I speak to this from the mentoring perspective, but I also speak about it for the people who are going to travel, this journey. Even today, as an engineering professor, according to American Society for Engineering Education data, I am one of 0.3% of Black women full professors in this country, 0.3%. That's out of 12,000, over 12,000 engineering faculty, 0.3%. And my colleagues and I, Dr. Joyce Main and Dr. Ebony McGee, had a study where we were looking at why people persist. If you know that you're going to be so isolated and go through some of these situations, why do you continue in these fields? And we even found out that even in the mid 20s, like 2016 or 2018, 91% of engineering departments had no Black women in them. So I'm telling you, 0.3%, 91%, no one, not seeing anyone who looks like me, particularly. Why do I continue? What is that about? It's going to be difficult. Why? I would say that there are so many ways that you have to, operate. And I think that's what I want to talk to you about today. I want to come from this perspective of someone who has seen so much and has had to teach not just my discipline, but it's the dynamics of how do you navigate the system. And I want to talk about demystifying the engineering PhD, because this is a book that I wrote based on interviews with 40 engineering PhD holders. One of the findings in the book came back to how people became successful in their discipline. And it started for many people with a positive word and saying, I can see you being successful. And I think it's really important too, because Dr. Etta Faulkner, who was one of the first Black women to get a PhD in engineering, was my mentor at Spelman College. I am from rural Alabama. I did not have AP classes. I did not have IB classes. I knew no engineers. I knew no one who had a PhD. But at the end of my time at Spelman, she called me in her office, and she was from Tupelo, Mississippi, and she said, we Southern girls have to stick together. She said, you don't see what I see in you, but you can go on to get an engineering degree. You can get a doctorate. You can be that person. And it was that seed that has caused me to even be here. That's the seed that was there when I was able to get a presidential award for my work from President Obama. That's the seed when I earned tenure. That's the seed when I graduated 10 PhD students, 2 who have tenure, who are associate professors right now in engineering departments and around the world. That's for my 5 postdocs. That's the seed. And I do not underestimate the power of the seed. And maybe you're going to be a professor, or you are a professor, and you have to realize that sometimes people don't even see what you see in them. And it's a matter of just saying, you can do this. That's simple. 101, I'm giving you that one. Independently of any of the diversity work, it's really the seed. And so we talk a lot about imposter syndrome. And I want you to say that as long as you have breath in your body, you are going to learn. You're going to feel that there's something else to do. I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm always learning. I'm always thinking about what I can do better. As an administrator, I was thinking, what can I do better? And so it's never really going to go away, but you have to learn how to be confident in who you are. And that's that wholeness I was talking about. Anyway, getting back to diversity, equity, and inclusion, this is something that I wrote on Twitter, and I had over 4 million views. And I said that instead of showing me your diversity statement, show me your hiring data, your discrimination claim stats, your salary tables, your retention numbers, your diversity policies, and your leaders' public actions against racism in performative allyship. So I mentioned that before, but the point of this is that last year, people were gung-ho about about diversity, equity, and inclusion. They were very excited about what was going on. They were saying, we commit to stopping Asian hate. We commit to hiring people with different voices. We commit to being equitable. But what has happened? This year should be the year of accountability, but instead we're seeing that companies did not follow through. Organizations did nothing. And this was an episode of NPR Code Switch, and it talked about that of the $50 billion pledged by corporations for racial justice, almost none of them had actually materialized into anything. So when I'm telling you about stop playing diversity, I'm pretty much saying that all that pressure that was applied last year needs to continue. All of the actions, all of the commitments that people made, when you do that, it's showing, a character, a person's character. You want to, it's like a contract. If you tell me that you're going to do something and you put it out there, you broadcast it, you get, all the blitz behind it, you recruit people into your organization and you say, I want this and I'm committed to it, but you don't do it, that makes you a liar. That is deceitful. And I think that we need to call people out for that, but we need to be really aware. And I know that it is often not our culture, depending on where you live, to hold people accountable. But if nothing else, hold yourself accountable. And so that's one of the lessons that I'll leave with you too. Another reason that we need to stop playing diversity is because people are leaving their organizations. People have options. It's across various sectors, blue collar, white collar, academia, corporate America. You are seeing people who are saying, when I was at home, I wasn't stressed out. Or maybe they were stressed out taking care of kids, but they weren't stressed out from like the microaggressions or toxicity in the workplace or the trauma in the workplace or the trauma in the laboratory. And there's something to that. And I think that we are seeing other trends, and people are saying, we want to go back to better places. We want to go back to places that respect us. And that includes graduate students. That includes people who worked nonstop for what? For little pay sometimes. And we need to do better. We need to treat people better, because that is what is going to seal the deal with our authenticity efforts, with our diversity efforts. We need to start doing real diversity work. And that includes taking care of people as they need to be taken care of. So I want you to think about your organization for a minute. I've kind of hinted at a few things, but does your organization play diversity? You don't have to put that in the chat. You don't have to write it down. Just think, don't say anything out loud. But, what shows you that your organization is committed? What policies are in place to demonstrate that commitment? What actions are in place? What has been done differently to show that this is a safe place, a place where people are protected and valued? Those are the things that we need to do, and we need to commit to, whether it's in a small laboratory, a large lab, a research center, an academic department, a college, a university, industry. We have to do better. So here are some questions too. People often don't say things out loud, but I'm here to say things out loud for you. So in many organizations, people wonder, particularly those from minoritized backgrounds or people who represent diverse perspectives and identities, are rules real? If we say that we value a person, do they mean it? How do you show this? Is it written? Is it said? Is it practiced? Will someone be penalized for saying that the rules aren't real? How do you engage with conversations that hold an organization or people accountable when the rules don't work? And then trust is a big thing. How do you trust a system? Can you trust a system? How do you know that you can trust a system? And so I want to put these here because you can even use these 4 questions to evaluate yourself. and to evaluate how you are growing in this work. Are you able to be an accomplice? Are you able to back up the things that you're saying? So I did an exercise. I read a book. I'm reading a book by Dr. Joy McGrew called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. And it's a really, really interesting read. And it talks about this issue of cognitive dissonance. And it says that when you think about the US and you think about history, you know, slavery was an institution that was focused on people and on the property, but a lot of the ideas that we have about slavery were justified to support the capitalistic nature of the enterprise of slavery. And that's where you get a lot of misconceptions about intelligence and you know, some other things too that really feed into racism. And so some questions I also want to bring to you comes back to, we say we value diversity. This can be your organization, but why are diverse groups being harmed? Why are we still having issues? If everyone has a diversity officer, if everyone has a diversity statement and an action plan, why is this continuing? Also, when you bring in new people into your lab or into your organization, when we don't take care of them, there's that dissonance. You know, you have to recruit and retain. They go together like a hand and glove. You have to do both. Also, when you conduct performance reviews, where's the accountability? And this can be seen in multiple perspectives, but these reviews could say, we need to do better, but what's going to cause you to do better? What resources are going to be in place? And then the last two are, the system offers support, but does the support really help? So, you know, we have various offices, we have various, you know, initiatives, but even when you're evaluating like your conference, when you're evaluating the activities over the next few days, you know, how is this really translating into something that people can use? How are we having conversations that are rich and are going to move the needle, that are going to transform how people enter a discipline, but how people also stay in the discipline? You know, this is something that does not belong to just one person. One person can't change this. It is the system. And this requires, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, it requires risk-taking. It requires action to words. It's, you know, we talk about theory and we talk about application in math. You know, theoretically, we can, you know, say that this is what we want to do, or this is how everything connects, but you also need that application, which is, this is how I'm executing it. This is the result of what I have proposed. And then finally, you know, if we have university values, why do people not feel safe? Why do they not want to report what's going on? Why are we still having these issues? So I want you to challenge yourself with this. So some other things I hear all the time, I've heard this as an administrator, people will always say, we can't do more because we want the best candidates. I promise you, I heard this Friday. I gave a presentation and someone pushed back and they said, why are we hiring those postdocs? Because we want the best people. And I, in my full professor voice, paused and I said, I need you to know that's an offensive comment, because you are assuming that if someone represents some type of intersectionality or something that is different from what you expect, then they aren't excellent. Don't make that assumption, because you've already judged that person. And I also want to point out that in some of the work that I've done, the word fear comes out. Why, you know, why can't we move forward? What's going on? Why aren't we having these conversations? And people are really afraid. Some people are afraid that they're going to lose power. Some people are afraid that they're going to do this work wrong. Some people are afraid that they're going to be penalized. And I think that we need to get to a point where we understand that you can share power and you can remain powerful. And in fact, you can be more powerful when you are comfortable in the fact that there are multiple people who need to come together to achieve a common goal, than withholding information or withholding resources from people. And so I want to say that I understand it takes a village to do this work. And it's not about leaving people out. It's about including people. It's about having the conversations to say, I'm ignorant and I want to do better, and hold me accountable for doing better. It's also saying, I don't trust you because of history, but I want to be able to trust you. And so it takes a lot. This is not just about our disciplines. This is about really wanting to do better, wanting to have the conversations, wanting to be authentic, but also realizing that we're not trying to do this from a place that harms people. And are we doing what we need to do to make sure that this is authentic? So another word I love all the time is courage. What do I know? Man, it takes a lot of courage. And I say it reminds me of working out. You know, when you first start working out, you're not able to lift that 100-pound weight, but if you keep working on it every day, you're going to start lifting, and you're probably going to be able to do even more. And courage comes in standing up against wrong. Courage comes in saying something about that policy doesn't align. Courage comes in saying this person had these resources, but this person gets different resources. Courage comes in actually encouraging. Sometimes it's just encouraging and saying, I know this is hard, but I see what you're doing and I appreciate the work that you're doing. All of that is courage. But like I said, it's developmental. And the thing that I would say is a nugget is that so often we want to put our work into a box. And, you know, you think it's about writing grants. It's about doing your lab work. It's about, writing your papers and attending your classes. But I have had to do more in the other space than I ever did in the technical piece. And I often tell people I was prepared to be a professor, but I was not prepared to be a pioneer. And this is the stuff that I'm giving you. This is the knowledge I'm telling you. These are the things that you're going to have to engage with when you don't have a blueprint, because for some of you, you are the blueprint. And there are people who will be blueprints. And it is so scary. That's the one thing I say. It is so scary. And I did a podcast a couple of months ago, and people asked me, is it easy to be authentic? Is it easy to be this? Because you make it look easy. And I said, you know what? It's not, because there are days when doing this work is scary because I don't know if anyone is going to follow me. I don't know if I'm going to be out there by myself having to educate people. And I don't know if I'm going to be persecuted for the work. It is a process every day. And I need people to understand that I'm not trying to discourage you, but I'm trying to tell you that you have to understand the complexity of the systems in which we work, and that to do this work well, you have to go deep sometimes. You have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to be deliberate in this work. And then a plan. I love a plan. I love strategy. I love vision. And so this work is not just going to happen. You know, we talked about those diversity statements. We talked about the diversity action plans. I think there are amazing plans that are out there, but you have to know step by step who is going to do the work. You have to know what resources are going to be given to that. And, you know, I speak to you, you know, as a former department chair too, you can have vision all day, but if you don't have a way to execute the vision, nothing is going to get done. And you have to balance that in this work too. So authenticity is not just talking, it's walking, and it's walking in a way that produces results. So these are some keys. When you think about how to do this well, there are some things. I love the word nurture. Some people think that nurture is a weak word, like in STEM, we don't nurture people. What is that about? Nurturing is important. Think about plants. Think about anything that needs to grow. it needs nurturing. I think about my toddler. He needs to be nurtured. I can't just put him out in the street and say, go and grow and be successful. No, every day I'm pouring into him. And that's the same way we have to engage in this work. Support. Man, I hear this word all the time. And a lot of people use the excuse to say, I don't know how to support people. I'm not aware. You know what? The first thing I'll say about support is if you're trying to be an accomplice, it's not about you. As much as somebody might want to center themselves, it is about the person you're trying to support. It's like whenever you think about a gift, you can get somebody a gift. If your budget is $5 and you're like, I want to go to the dollar store, get you 5 little pencils, that's cool. But does that person like pencils? Does that person want your cheap pencils? I mean, it's, I'm being funny when I say it, but what does that person want? If your budget is $5, maybe that's cool. Maybe the person would like a card, but you need to know like what's going on. And so I want to challenge us to not just do things that are convenient, because sometimes convenient is not helpful. Also, respect. Let's talk about this. Respect means so many different things to different people. And I think that you need to know what that means. There are some people who don't need any type of acknowledgement. There are some people who are fine just being in the wings, but there are others who say it is based on my community experience, I need my voice to be heard. Based on this experience, I need to know you as a person. I need to understand you. I need to understand why you are doing what you're doing. And you have to respect that, because that's what that person brings. I talk about assimilation and I talk about code switching. I don't like it at all, because I think when you're doing authentic diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, and belonging work, you're letting someone come in as they are. That does not mean that they're right all the time, but it's saying, I see you, I know this is who you are, and in this space, you can be that person. Also, let's talk about resources for a moment. We want to make sure, I've said this numerous times, but that the support, the structure, the infrastructure, fiscally, it's in place. Also, it's important to take people seriously. If there is something that is needed, if there are complaints, if there are comments, don't just dismiss them because it's not your experience. So often people will say, no one's ever said that before, so it must not be true. Well, no, it may be true, but honor that. Honor the fact that this person shared something with you that they want you to hear. And another point is equity. I even thought about this today, and it happens like every day, but it's like I told you about policies. If someone is getting, funds to go to a conference, is everyone going to be given funds to go to the conference? How are you selecting this? How are you making policies visible? Many ways that systemic oppression continues to happen in our organizations is that decisions are made in ways that are not visible. And we want to make sure that if a policy does not exist, you can create one. Believe it or not, you can. You can revise policies. You can eliminate policies. But it's important to understand that when you bring someone in who is new, who brings a different perspective, the organization is going to change. The place has to change, because that's what this is all about. That's what authentic diversity is. People come in to make the place better and to shift it. Also, when I talk about responding in a timely manner, it comes back to if someone has an issue. Also, if there are complaints, we don't want complaints, but if there are, you want to make sure that you are investigating it. I'm also hearing from a lot of people that there are not places in organizations to address some of the issues that go on. They're like, it's not a Title IX issue. It's not HR, a microaggression. What do you do with that? And many people do nothing. But you need to realize that avoiding situations that doesn't make the situation go away. And so when you're talking about real diversity, sometimes you're not going to have that blueprint. And it's like, we've never had this situation before, but let's work together to figure out what we need to do. And I think that's where that courage comes in as well. Too few people want to address the difficult things that are going on in the organization, the difficult personalities, the difficult dynamics. But if we're going to have places that are more welcoming, we have to address it. And that's really what being a leader is about. Whether you have a formal title or not, you have to do this. And then you step in when the isms are at play. Once again, people are saying, I don't know, I'm ignorant, I'm not aware. Okay, acknowledge that, but someone needs to learn. You remember all the book clubs last year? I laugh about the book clubs. Oh my goodness. Book clubs, book clubs, book clubs. Goodness gracious. But you know what? You need to do something with that knowledge from the books. You know, if it just don't read about anti-racism and not do anything. Don't just read about, some of the issues that are happening and just say, okay, check. I can now brag about this. I read 10 books this year. No, if there's no action, you're still playing diversity. So here's some step-by-step things too. I think, we talked about how do you do this? How do you stop? Very practical ways. How do you stop playing diversity? I think you have to review and revise your current policies and processes. And even if you're on the other side of this and you're like, well, I'm a student, what do I have to, how is that important to me? We want to get to a place where people can ask for clarification. If we are establishing scholars, then we want them to ask questions. And so that means asking, where is this policy? What does this mean to me? How does this impact me in my future? That's good. Questioning is great. We also want to make sure that we're addressing biases and prejudices. We have to sometimes change the infrastructure as we grow and as we move into this work. You also want to make sure that you're educating people about the norms. You can't just have a meeting. We can't just have our conference and something happens that's amazing and everyone goes back and we now don't know the impact of that. And so are you communicating this? What does it mean when you make changes? Who needs to know? And how do you say that? Also, it's important when you are engaging in conflict. I told you courage is going to be required. Look at the US, for example. You have people who agree and disagree about everything, just turn on the news at any point, and it's become very contentious. You know this, but if you're going to move forward in this work, you have to lay it on the table and say, sometimes we have to agree to disagree, but it's something that we have to address. And it's not personal, but if we're going to be better together, let's address this. Also, you have to make tough decisions to eliminate some discriminatory actions. It's important to listen to stories. I'm not trying to say have people share all their trauma, but if and when, by the time someone gets to a point that they want to share something with you, it has built up and there's just this vulnerable place. And you have to be sensitive to that when it happens. And then, the point of this whole session, having conversations that have never occurred, there's some trailblazing that's going to happen. So here are just some other quick things that I want to have you think about when we're talking about boundaries. Do we have certain boundaries that take into consideration people's perspectives? What does compensation look like? I mentioned that before. At every level, people don't want anyone to play with their money. And I think we need to look at that and how we are engaging. For example, are women paid differently? Are people of color paid differently? When you're talking about resources, what are you putting into play? Whether it's oral resources, written resources, et cetera. Also training, implicit bias. Goodness, people love implicit bias training, but there's so many other things that you could do. And so how do you move toward this place? When you think about even a particular technique that you're working on, there's more than one way to analyze data. And so you don't just say the end all be all is this one program. You have to have different approaches. Leadership, Ooh, I love leadership. And I think that to do this work, people have to be leaders. And we often talk about formal leadership, but there's indirect leadership as well. Your presence, your technical presence is leadership. Your being here today is leadership. All of this is leadership, and we all play a role, and you have to recognize that. And then when it comes to the bad part, harassment, discrimination, what policies, processes, and practices are in place to address this. So as I move on, I want to encourage us to continue to have conversations, communication, conversation, transparency. How are we going to stay abreast of what's going on? How do we have a conversation after this talk? How do we move this into a real in-person space? How do we move this in writing? How do we move this into our communities? How do we move this into some other places? Like, it's going to take focused work to do it, and trying to make sure that we're holding ourselves accountable individually and collectively. And so this is my homework as a professor. I want you to do this, even if you have to do it after this time, but think about the specific ways that you can engage in authentic diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, and or belonging. From your position, whatever position that is, what are you committing to do? Now, in your time, whether you journal, if you have like your phone, you want to write notes, during a breakout, just write down 3 things before your head hits the pillow tonight. 3 things that you want to do, whether it's being more courageous, creating a plan, having a conversation, whatever it is, you can do something. We all have something to do. I have something to do. And we need to keep that in front of us so that we can continue to do this work. And one of the things that I love affirmations. And so I'm just say this too, where you have to be courageous. But if you're not courageous, you can look at yourself in the mirror and you can say, I'm courageous, I'm diligent, and I'm resilient. And you just say it, even if it's not true. We talk about imposter syndrome, you speak those things that you want to see, and the thing that I had to write is that I am more than a title, a position, a paycheck, or a role. Where does that come from? When you do this work, I am sometimes seen as a rebel. I am someone who does not fit into the system. And so my work, the work I had to do, when you talk about those 3 things, the work that I had to do is to say that this is what I'm going to do if I never ascend into another leadership position. This is the work that I'm going to do if I never get paid extreme, exorbitant amounts of money. This is the work that I'm going to do because I care about it. And I want to also say the thing that got me and why I'm so passionate even about being here with you is that, I tweet a lot, and a lot of people are like, why are you tweeting? You don't have time for that. Full professors don't tweet. That's a whole different conversation for a different day. But I shifted because a young woman sent me a message, and she said that she thought about taking her life, and my words kept her moving. And I checked on her, and she said, she was getting the therapy that she needed. But I had a moment where I just had to sit down, and I said, this is why I do what I do. This is what's up. Like, this is life. This is my life in this moment. And if this is what I'm called to be and do in this moment, I will go with it. And so, looking forward to your future, whatever that future is, it may be rough, but this work is worth doing because you are laying the foundation for other people. You're laying the foundation for your field. You're transforming the world when you do this. You can also say my dreams and hopes are alive. My future is bright. No matter how dark it looks, no matter how uncertain you are, there's another day to do this. And, I see that. I have been that person. And it's just, I don't know. I think about it. And, I just want to encourage you, if no one's ever told you this before, you matter. And what you're doing in this space matters. And you have a voice. And you will be successful no matter what any organization tells you. You have to know that before you go in. That's the key. You don't let a place define you. You are whole. You are who you are from your core. And that's what takes you to the end of your life. And then finally, you'll move and change directions as needed. I told you, I've been all over the place. I'm an entrepreneur, too much. I do a lot, y'all. But when it's time to move, it's time to move in whatever direction that is. And when you're flexible, you're in the place where you need to be at that moment, doing what you need to do and influencing the people you need to influence. So just put a few other plugs in here, if that's okay. But I have a group called The Trajectory, working on some stuff. If you're on Facebook, look for it. I have 3 questions to answer, and I'm trying to just connect people who want to continue having these conversations. Also, I have some things on my website that I'll tell you about, to engage with people. If you feel that you're alone, I have some things for you. I do a lot of free stuff on Twitter. If you're an accomplice and you want to learn more how to do this work really well, I have some stuff as well. And then I'm available. I want to continue this. And if you have other thoughts, topics, follow me, contact me, because I'm here for this. So thank you so much.
Monica, thank you. That was incredible. Bravo. We have a couple questions in the Slido. I just want to reiterate that what you said was really insightful and gave me some new perspectives on how to think about the work that I'm doing. So thank you. So the first question is, and I'll just read it verbatim. I'm wondering about performative allyship and game playing. What are the 2 or 3 warning signs that we can call out and say, quote, no, that is not game playing? Sorry, no, that is game playing.
Yeah, you know what? It's that walking and talking. So, if you're seeing something and it's not matching, then that also lets you know that something is not quite right. And so, if people are saying like, we welcome you, but then you're like, oh, I feel yucky. I don't feel welcome. This is not good. Then that's telling you something, like there's a disconnect, and sometimes it's not intentional. What are some other things? I think when the resources are not there, people want you to do a lot of things for free, but it's like, shouldn't I be supported for doing this work? Like, I'm just not, it's called, people call it like emotional taxation, cultural taxation, et cetera. But like when you're the person who has to do all the work and no one else is doing the work, then that's kind of a sign as well. Mm-hmm. It's a team effort.
Yeah. And in my experience also, it's like when there's so much focus on recruiting and then no attention paid to retention. I mean, that to me, that's just like one of the epitomes of playing.
Absolutely.
So the next question, how to take action on issues that fall in the cracks, such as what you just discussed. I forget when it was that this question was asked. When the administration is refusing to give consequences.
Let me tell you something. I don't think there's an answer for this. And that's hard because I feel like I still go through all this too. And, I think it's about, coalition building, and it's about the community, and it's finding people who want to do this work and are in positions of power to do this work. Well, like you have to somehow build a community because the systems are usually so strong. Like this is not just I want to report something and say it and it goes somewhere. No, if there's a wall against it, you're going to have to figure out how to penetrate that wall, because that's hard. That's what we're talking about with the systems. Like it's how people do work. They don't want to change. And so you have to look for the ally, not the allies, the accomplices. Mm-hmm. The accomplices are going to tear it down.
So along those lines, this workshop or this conference is focused on specifically changing the graduate admissions process for graduate admissions in the mathematical sciences. And so can you reflect a bit on sort of some actionable things that people might take there? Particularly, one of my concerns is that oftentimes a person will be the lone champion for change in their department. And so, making this transition from ally to advocate to accomplice but at the same time, one needs allies so that they're not the lone champion. Can you reflect a bit on these kinds of things, but specifically how it might relate to graduate admissions?
Yeah, it's the subjective and the objective stuff. And so many times you have to think about the language, like think about the things that are biases. And it's like, hold it, are you making this assumption? Like, did anyone really say that? Like, where is this coming from? And it's like, calling it out is really important when someone says, well, like, for example, if someone comes from, what do I know, an HBCU, and they're saying, well, they don't really have good programs there. It's like, how do you know that? Like, what does that mean? What awareness do you have? And so really not just taking at face value what someone says if it's something negative, but actually getting into the rubrics and the objective ways of having conversations. So that's one thing. Another is about relationships. Like, this is what I've learned from being the director of a new postdoc program and having 25 applicants in, I want to say, like 4 months. It comes back to actually showing that you care. So often people think, oh, we're the best program, and so they're going to come. But what makes you the best program? Like, stop being so arrogant. You need to recruit. It's like a relationship. I say this all the time because I love love. And if you are dating someone, if someone's just like, whatever, they don't call you back, they don't text you, like they're not making an effort, you're not going to recruit anybody. Who's going to come there? That's not special. And you need to think about it that way. Have you called that person? Have you made them feel that they are valued and that they will be valued when they come in? And so a lot of people also just put the quant stuff there, but it's qualitative too. So I'm saying subjective, objective, but also qual and quant. So that's my math background talking.
Yep. Yeah, thank you. I love that analogy between dating. I mean, getting the first date's one thing, second and third date.
Yeah. And do I even want to marry you? That's the thing. Like, do I want to commit? I don't know.